Returning to one of our top stories, and Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has ruled out further changes to the revised tax cut changes that's ahead of Labor's pitch to Parliament. Joining me live is Nationals Senate Leader Bridget McKenzie. Thank you very much for joining us and good afternoon. So many are calling it a broken promise, while others are welcoming the new changes. Two issues really here, one being economical and the other political. What's your take been on this?
Yeah, great to be with you and Happy New Year, Janie. Look, I think this is first and foremost a broken promise. I mean, the Prime Minister this morning was very loath to actually admit that he and his Treasurer had promised the Australian people 100 times that there would be no changes to the Stage 3 tax cuts, and yet here we are. And for him today to be saying there won't be any further changes, well, you can't take this guy at his word. It's that simple. So you've seen the Greens out this morning very early to get this through the Senate. They're going to have to, negotiate across the Parliament. And that means, are we going to see negative gearing changes that the Greens are so fond of, or death duties attached to this change tax package? We don't know, and we can't take this Prime Minister at his word very, very clearly. I mean, this tax package is simply about a plan to win the seat of Dunkley. It's not a plan to help Australians with cost of living. If they were going to do this as their approach to cost of living issues, well, then they would have put it in their May budget last year. This won't be coming into effect until July next year, way after the Dunkley by-election. So it's purely a political response to having to win the seat of Dunkley.
Yeah, so why do you think he made that announcement so close? It was basically at the 11th hour.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, tax reform takes time. It should take a lot of thought and a lot of getting advice from experts and specialists. He's claiming that it's addressing the cost of living crisis. Well, the reason we have a cost of living crisis is the embedded and homegrown nature of inflation at the moment. And that's hurting everybody across the board. And it didn't just happen over Christmas. Australians have been dealing with this all last year. And instead of dealing with the reality of that, this government was instead fighting a failed referendum and seemed unable to think of anything else. Over summer, they've realised that Australians are struggling. It isn't just something that the opposition's been talking about. It is a very real issue for Australians right across the board. And so they've thought this is the quick fix. Rather than announce it in their budget and deliver it in July, they're announcing it now so it can actually assist them in the Dunkley by-election. I mean, the reality is it's doing nothing to fix inflation, and it's doing nothing to fix bracket creep, which are the two things that are meaning Australians are having less of their own money in their own bank accounts to help them get ahead in life.
Some economists, well, they're mixed views really, but some are saying that could potentially put upward pressure on inflation with these new tax cut changes.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've seen that I think it was Chris Richardson came out saying that there were potential impacts, that this will have a mild inflationary impact. The fact is the government should be doing everything it can to not just maintain inflation at its current rate or have it slightly increased, but doing everything it can to drive down inflation. And that means actually stopping government spending and flooding through the economy. If this government was serious about assisting low and middle income earners, it would not have taken $4 billion out of 10 million low and middle income earners in their last budget when they got rid of the low middle income tax offset, which was up to $1,500 in people's pockets as a result of putting in their tax return. They removed that, and now they're coming in as a white knight. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. There's no credibility to the argument. And I think Australians don't want a tax system or a government that pits one Australian against the other. Very clearly, they demonstrated that last year in the referendum. They don't want to see that somebody getting ahead is at the expense of somebody else. And these changes are absolutely targeting those who want to work hard and get ahead for their families. And it doesn't deal with bracket creep. So millions and millions and millions of people are going to be worse off over the next decade, which is why these changes were actually implemented in the first place. They weren't a cost of living measure. They were actually to assist with bracket creep in this country, which means the harder you work, the less you take home, which is kind of the opposite of what should be happening.
Do we need to be perhaps looking at other strategies rather than focusing on income tax, look at other taxes, for example, or do we need like an overhaul of the whole system?
Well, I think there's been a lot of calls, particularly from industry, businesses, economists more broadly, that we do need tax reform more generally across not just the Commonwealth but our state taxes as well. I'm here in, the Socialist Republic of Victoria, and the amount of taxes that everyday Australians and Victorians in particular are paying as a result of increasing taxes is phenomenal. So I think it would be absolutely worthwhile looking at the spread of taxes that Australians are paying through state and federal collections and reforming that, because productivity is at a zero in this country, and the way that we're actually going to keep our high standard of living that we enjoy in this beautiful country, make sure that we can afford to do the things we want to do, is get productivity up. And that means we need to get taxes down. And there is a serious conversation that needs to be had. This isn't the solution at all, and it will be very interesting to see what the Reserve Bank thinks of this going forward.
Well, yes, very good point there, because there's talk of potential, interest rates staying as they are, or, possibly even going up.
Yeah, and I think everybody that's got a mortgage out there in our suburbs and regional capitals is just really struggling. The Christmas bills have come in now. They're starting to prepare to get the kids off to school. They're having to make decisions, do we keep everybody in swimming lessons this term or not? They're the very real conversations that are happening at kitchen tables around the country right now. And all this Prime Minister can do is tweak a tax measure that was actually set up to address bracket creep, instead of whilst at the meantime bringing in 1.5 million migrants, which means the housing crisis continues and rents go through the roof, an energy policy that's making prices go up, not down, embedding inflation, which means food and fuel and all the other costs of living are going through the roof. So speaking through one side of their mouth over here as a government, whilst all these decisions that they're making on transport, on energy, and as I said, across a raft of other policy areas, are driving costs up. So it's very hard not to be cynical that this is actually about winning a by-election and maintaining power rather than actually keeping faith with the Australian people, because he was very, very adamant that he was a man of his word. Well, guess what? It turns out he's not.
We're going to leave on a high note, Senator Bridget McKenzie, because the 52nd Tamworth Country Music Festival...
I hope I don't have to sing.
Well, there should be a guitar behind you. We've got it prepared. We're actually... Well, you never know, because we're about to have Wade Foster, who just won the Star Maker of the Year award. So he's coming on, so he might sing and join you perhaps. But yes, it wraps up today. Over 50,000 people were expected to attend over 10 days. I mean, it draws in huge crowds and brings in a lot of money. And, with the cost of living pressures, I mean, there's a lot of free events, but I mean, it's huge. It still brings people to the wonderful place of Tamworth, and it's certainly something that we need to lift our spirits in this time, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And I am a sucker for country music. I think it tells a story of the human experience. And, when you think of some of the great popular singers that have come out of the Tamworth Music Festival, like Casey Chambers and a whole raft of others, I think it's so exciting when these events, iconic events, are held in the regions. Everybody comes, not just from the locally, but from right around the world and indeed capital cities, and really gives that spiritual uplift, but also a significant economic uplift. And I know even Senator Nampijinpa Price's husband, Colin Little, had an act there as well. So the National Party's got quite a bit of street cred on the Tamworth Music Festival as well, and I know it's been a fabulous event and everybody really enjoyed it. So I hope we get some good tunes out of it.
Well, disappointed, Senator, that you're not singing. Very disappointing in that.
No, I want your ratings to go up, not down.
All right, we'll leave it for Wade after the break, but thank you very much. And it's going to be very interesting times in Parliament. You might be wanting to sing after a few of those sessions. But yes, good luck.
Might have to.
Thank you.